and welcome to my review of Gladiator 2. I haven't been able to post a video for about 3 months because I've been away travelling. But I saw quite a lot of films in that time. One of them was Gladiator 2. Now, the first Gladiator I thought was really good. Um, that's not an unpopular opinion. Uh, it was just a very focused, exciting, tense film with great costumes, brilliant performances. All the battle scenes were tense and well staged and well prepared and choreographed and put together. And at the end of this revenge tale, Gladiator, when Maximus gets his revenge, it feels so amazing. You feel for him. The emotional stakes are huge. You want him to get revenge for all that's been done to him and his family. And it's just a great film. Everything about it works. So when they said they were making a second one, I thought this is going to have to be something that justifies its own existence, and I don't feel that Gladiator 2 does at all. What I feel like is that Ridley Scott wants to be working, which is fine, and he wants to make something that's already got a name attached to it, that's an IP, so that it will get some attention. And maybe he likes doing these big battle scenes or something. I'm not sure what the motivation was for it, apart from perhaps money and just this guy wants to keep working, which is great. I think he should keep working. But as a film, I didn't really like this. Now, what's the plot? Okay, so I had to take some notes here because it seemed a bit not convoluted, just not really interesting enough that I would remember it. A lot of films after I've seen them, I was so into them, I was so locked in, I was so riveted that I could just tell you off the top of my head what the story was. Not so with this one. I had to go back over Wikipedia and look up what it was. But there's some spoilers here, but not that it really matters. But this is set 16 years after Aurelius's death. Lucius, who is Maximus's son, who's now going under the name Hanno, lives in North Africa as a refugee. It's attacked by the Roman army led by Cassius. Lucius's wife is killed, so it's a bit of a retread of the first one. Wife dead, and now Lucius is taken to Ostia, where he has to fight some CGI baboons or something. There's these dog baboon things in it that the gladiators have to fight. They look absolutely ridiculous. They look ridiculous. And I'll get back to that in a second. But this is tiring me out to even talk about this film. Anyway, so Lucius stroke Hanno gets the attention of Denzel Washington's I think he's a slave trader or trainer called Macronus, who wants him to go to Rome and fight. Anyway, and he wants to go to Rome. Lucius wants to go to Rome so that he can kill Pedro Pascal's character, who killed his wife in North Africa, the general. What was his name? Cassius. So, right, just go back to these baboons now. The first Gladiator was I'm not a historian. I don't know that Gladiator 1 was 100% historically accurate. It probably wasn't. But I think it was all within the realms of believability. You could look at it and think someone's done some research. It seems fair enough. I feel that in having animals that sort of look like they couldn't exist, and later on things like sharks in the swimming around in the Colosseum, in the flooded Colosseum, this film, it just like it's not plausible. And given that the first film was a bit plausible, that is a bit of a deal breaker for me. Now, if the first film had been implausible and weird and really historically inaccurate, but the same quality that it was, then the historical inaccuracy and the implausibility itself of the second film wouldn't be a problem, because you could just say, well, this is a fantasy series. But because there's that mismatch between the first film being relatively grounded and this film being so fantastical, almost like Ridley Scott sort of trolling with the historical inaccuracy, It's really jarring. I didn't like that. But it takes you out of it, and the CGI as well. The CGI looks bad. I always remember when I see horrible CGI in films now, how great the dinosaurs looked in Jurassic Park, which I think was 1993, and that looked more real than these baboon creatures that Lucius is fighting in Gladiator 2. So there's no excuse for it. They could have him fight something else. They could have him just fighting other humans. They could have done it so many other ways, and they chose to do this. And I think it's just to make it look cool, maybe for modern audiences or something like that. But that was bad. That was bad. And also with Paul Mescal's performance. Paul Mescal plays Lucius Stroke Hano. He just doesn't have that gravitas that Russell Crowe had. Russell Crowe played Maximus with this aura of noble intent, bereavement, grief, and righteous anger that brought so much sort of weight to the role, made the film feel heavy and significant, and like there were stakes involved. Whereas, Paul Mescal just seems I mean, I couldn't really care less what happened to him. There was one point I remember later on in the film where I thought he was going to get killed, and I did not care. Now, if that had happened to Russell Crowe at any point in Gladiator, if it really looked like he was about to get killed, I would have been on the edge of my seat, because that film was such a perfectly paced, well realized, well structured, dramatic piece that I really cared. I would have cared if he'd have got killed. But with Lucius in Gladiator 2, I don't even care. And the fact that he is Maximus's son doesn't carry any weight either. They sort of squander that. You're supposed to care about him, but you don't really care. So anyway, so he gets taken to Ostia, and Denzel Washington wants him to go and fight in Rome. Now, so you got the same setup basically as Gladiator. That this guy wants to go to Rome, and he wants to find the guy that killed his wife. So fine, good. That's enough for me to watch, I suppose. Now, Denzel Washington is probably the main reason to watch this film. He's the main reason to watch this film. Not because he fits into it, or because the whole film has the same tone as him and he's complimenting everything else, but basically because he's a fun distraction. He's sort of camping it up, and he's chewing the scenery, and he's being evil, and he's pronouncing words in an evil way, and he just seems to really be reveling in all of his power plays and doing evil things. It's great, but he's sort of a curiosity. It's really nice to see Denzel Washington doing this kind of over the top acting, but it's like people have been raving about his performance, and I wouldn't rave about it. It's not a brilliant performance like you see in John Q, where he's brilliant, or in Training Day, where he's brilliant, or in some of the more intense scenes in the Equalizer films, where he's absolutely brilliant. It's not that. What Denzel Washington is in this film is a fun distraction that makes the film bearable, which is something different. He's been told to cut loose, I think, and that's what he does, but it doesn't redeem the film, it just makes it bearable. But anyway, so his character, Macrinus, goes through all of these power plays after that so that he can take over Rome. Rome is being run by these twin emperors, and they're called Geta and Caracalla, and they're these kind of pale goblins. One of them's got a pet monkey, and syphilis, I think, and is going insane and everything. Now, this is another problem, because in the first one, Joaquin Phoenix as Commodus was fantastic. That was a well-rounded character. What was brilliant about Commodus was that he was horrible. He was a horrible person. He was scheming and conniving, and you couldn't respect him, but you could understand him, because he For example, there's a scene where he is talking to his father, Aurelius, and he's saying to Aurelius, one time you gave me the list of 12 virtues for a good leader, and I didn't have any of the virtues, but I have virtues of my own. I have ambition, and I have this, and I have that. He listed off some other resourcefulness or something like that. And you could see how, although he didn't have these innate qualities and virtues that his father wanted, he felt very disappointed in himself for not living up to what his father wanted. He did still feel justified as a person. He felt he had his own innate qualities that could do something for Rome. He was wrong-headed and he was bad, but you see his point of view. He wasn't brave. He was some people aren't brave, and he wasn't brave, but he felt he had other things to offer, and it was his misfortune almost to be born into those expectations. So in a way, you kind of understood Joaquin Phoenix's character, but he was so repellent and awful, and the things that he did to Maximus's family was so nasty that in the end you felt he deserved to die. So you had some kind of different feelings about him going on at the same time. You understood how he was in this situation, but also you couldn't respect how he responded to it. It was a nicely nuanced character, a really good villain. But these two in Gladiator 2, the fact there's two of them dilutes it as well, because you don't really get to know either of them. But there's nothing about them where you really have anything explained to you. Why are they like this? Are they truly evil, nasty people? They're sort of clowns, and you end up looking at them thinking, how have they ever even got to be in charge of anything? How are they in charge of a lemonade stand or a children's party or anything, let alone Rome? And the fact that Denzel Washington manages to play them and take over Rome, it seems like anyone would be able to do that. They're so cartoonish. But anyway, so it doesn't matter in a way, because Denzel Washington ends up being the main villain, really. But you want some Roman emperors with a bit more gravitas, just well-textured characters. Like Joaquin Phoenix's character was so well-textured, so well-acted, and this time it's just a cartoon. So Getter and Caracalla were not good characters. That's another thing that made the film feel sort of lightweight and throwaway. Now, speaking of that, the first film was obviously shot back when Ridley Scott was using film. Maybe had like one camera pointed at it, and he would carefully storyboarding all of the action sequences and getting them together and taking days to film them and plotting them all out. He had a clear vision for what he wanted. And the second one hasn't been made like that. I think one guy that was maybe the director of photography, or one person that was working on the production, said that the way that this guy is shooting now, the way Ridley Scott is shooting now, is not like how he used to. He would have maybe 8 cameras pointed at it and just shoot everything from every angle and then edit it together afterwards. So some action sequence that would have taken a few days in the past would now be shot in just 4 hours or something. Bang, bang, shoot it and go. And even if a bit of the set is hanging down, or boom, or like some sound equipment or something is hanging down in frame, instead of getting that out of the way and redoing it, or making sure it gets done properly in the first place, it'd be okay, let's remove it in post-production, which makes the film hard. It's harder to light it, apparently, when it's being shot from all those different angles. It's just generally like kind of sloppy and fast. I don't think that you can really make a great film unless you really plot out in advance to a certain degree how you want things to look. I don't think you can just spray that many cameras at something and edit it together later. I mean, you can make something that looks passable and slick, but I don't think it's ever going to have that sort of weight, that theatricality, that feeling of having been staged and preconceived and just baked in someone's imagination for a long time that you would want from a great piece of cinema. And that's certainly the case with Gladiator 2. It feels very flyweight. it's hard to describe. I felt the same way watching the new Indiana Jones film. It doesn't feel like you're watching cinema. It feels like you're watching a hyperactive kind of music, not like a music video, but I don't know. I don't know. It's just very, yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm not a cinematographer, so I struggle to articulate what it is. But as a film goer, it doesn't feel staged or put together or as heavy or as epic in a lot of ways. One thing for me as well, like just going to the structure of it and the action and everything, is that in the first one, the set pieces seemed to go on for quite a long time. They had a period where they would build up in tension, where you would have the gladiators coming in, they would be in the little tunnel coming in, you would have maybe some shots of their faces. Ridley Scott took great care to show the mental state of the gladiators before they came into fight. Show Russell Crowe looking sort of resolute. They would come in, and then you would get these shots of the Colosseum, so you'd see the scale, and you'd see the stage that they were on, and then you'd have the sound design was great. And so when you had like the preliminary blows or the wheels turning of the chariots coming in or something, there'd be this feeling of like the battle building up, and you'd have a good explanation of what tactics were going to be used, how are they going to face the situation that they're in, the specific enemy that had been put in the Colosseum for them to fight. And you'd see like the strategic battle unfold, and then Russell Crowe come out victorious. And that whole process would take quite a long time. But in Gladiator 2, there are quite a number of battle scenes, but they all of them felt rushed. It'd be like, shove them in there. Oh, look, there's some water. Oh, look, there's a shark. Oh, look, he's won. And it would be done very, very quickly. I don't know if that was my imagination. Maybe I was expecting so much from them that they seemed quicker than they were. So if I ever care to rewatch it, I might make a note of how long those scenes were compared to how long they were in the first Gladiator. But I do feel that they were a lot shorter and they lacked something. A lot of people were raving about the action in Gladiator 2. I didn't think the action was very good. Actually, on a side note to this, when this is a pet peeve I have at the moment with these films coming out, is that when you go on social media and someone's seen an advanced screening of something or a premiere of something, people are saying these films are the best film in 10 years and the best film of a generation, and then you go and see them and they're very mid. They're very mid, and people are obviously saying this either for clout. This is a function of social media now. People are saying this stuff for clout, so they can get more attention and more retweets, or they're saying it because they want to be invited to another screening, or they're saying it because they want to get into the film industry themselves and they want to be nice to people in the film industry. I don't know why they're saying these things, but you get films like Longlegs, Gladiator 2, and when the first tweets come out from the first people seeing Alien Romulus as well, people are saying, this is incredible, this is amazing, this is the best thing ever. So Gladiator 2, somebody said this is one of the best films ever made, not just one of the best films of the year, but one of the best films ever made. Longlegs, they were saying this, dread is infusing every frame, it's as good as Silence of the Lambs. Romulus, remember someone saying this is an absolute wrecking ball of a movie. Now, all these, Gladiator 2 I think is a bad movie, but Longlegs, I think if you like atmospheric horror, you like vibes and you want a slow burn, I think it's a passable horror film. It's not for me, but I can see how a lot of people would enjoy it. I wouldn't say it's a bad film, but people hyped that up so much, and then the average response when a large number of people got to saw it was nowhere near as high as the average response for the people who saw the first screenings, right? Romulus is just a kind of a solid, I reviewed that here, but my view of it's gone down a little bit since rewatching it actually, but it's a solid film. It doesn't really deserve to be up there with the other Alien films. I don't even really think it's as good as Alien Resurrection, but it's kind of okay. It's a good time killer. To say it's an absolute wrecking ball of a film and it's so violent and it's so gory and all of that, that's such an exaggeration. So this is a pet peeve of mine, and this applied with Gladiator 2, was people saying this is one of the best films in years, this is amazing, this is a miraculous, brilliant film. even if you really wanted to suck up to the people that made it, I would say, the best you could say is it's solid. The average response to the first people seeing it, and then the average response of moviegoers in general, there's such a gap there. So that's a pet peeve I have recently. I think it's social media that's doing this. People, when they're the first person to see something, they just don't want to be a downer and say this stinks, and then get attacked by all the people who have high expectations for it online. You're the first person to see something and you tweet out, I saw it the weekend, I was in the first 100 people to see it and it stinks. You get a lot of people maybe who want it to be great, might start replying to you in a negative way, or so maybe that's a deterrent from saying that. Maybe people get caught up in the atmosphere of seeing the first screening of something, maybe because the director's there or something, or maybe there's a lot of press people there, or maybe people want to get into the industry or something. I don't know what the motivations are, but people are getting very, very carried away when they see these films. Maybe some of it is that there's a younger generation, the people that are doing these first reviews, and perhaps Gladiator 2 works better if you're from a different generation, maybe. I don't know. So I'm 45 and I saw Gladiator, the first one, when it came out in the cinema. And to me, I like a slow burn in the story a bit more. Gladiator isn't even... Gladiator, it takes about 45 minutes, really, even to get going, the first one. You get a big battle scene, and then it kind of slows down at the beginning. But it really takes its time to build up the characters, to show you the political situations, get the intrigue going, to show you where all the pieces on the chessboard are. And there's a real structure to the story. There's little side alleys of political intrigue where it gives you a bit more detail, and they all feed nicely back into the main plot in due course and push the tension up more. It's well structured, and all of that. Whereas Gladiator 2 to me feels much more hyperactive. It feels like there's a spaghetti plot with just more and more stuff heaped on, and there isn't as much weight to it. And I don't know if that's because films are made for people who process narrative in a different way these days. I didn't grow up with a phone. I didn't grow up with having my attention span fragmented all over the place by TikTok and social media and all that. At the risk of sounding like an old man, I do think that our consciousness as Gen X or, boomers and older generations, I think the way our consciousness works and the way that we process narrative is probably very different than it is for young people. I think maybe they have different expectations when it comes to pacing, when it comes to the level of depth and information that they want with certain aspects of storytelling. Maybe spectacle is far more important and it doesn't need to be justified in the same way. Gladiator, the first one, has a lot of spectacle, but there's a lot of meaning behind that and it's justified, whereas Gladiator 2 just is a spectacle for no reason. Now what I'm saying is, for me, that's not enough, but maybe for younger generations it is enough. Maybe for them, I don't doubt it's better, but maybe it's enough in some way. Maybe it causes people to get more enthusiastic more easily when they see these first screenings of something. They just go, wow, there's loads of monkeys and there's a shark or something. I mean, I don't know how people think. I'm just speculating, so that might be a condescending view to have, but I'm just trying to understand how anybody thought this was a well-made film. But anyway, so continue with the plot of Gladiator 2. Eventually, Denzel Washington takes over Rome. He has Hannah, Lucius's mother, killed, and then this leads to the final showdown, which feels very rushed and very stupid, between Paul Mescal's character Lucius and Denzel Washington, where they fight outside Rome. Again, you have to compare this to the first Gladiator, which is grounded in reality. There they are in the Colosseum, Russell Crowe and Joaquin Phoenix. They have a face-off, and Joaquin Phoenix is the Commodus. The Emperor is nowhere near as good a fighter as Maximus, so he has to, this is all spoilers by the way, I assume everyone's seen it, but he has to sort of injure him beforehand to even have a chance, so he fights him, and nonetheless, Maximus heroically overpowers him and he wins. And it's all very possible that it would happen, and then Maximus dies, right? Now, in Gladiator 2, somehow Both of these men, Denzel Washington and Lucius Paul Mescal, managed to get outside of Rome within a couple of seconds. That they're miles away from the Colosseum where they both were moments before. So it seems unrealistic. They've somehow find themselves outside of Rome on the outskirts, and then Macrinus, who's now in charge of Rome, there he is, and he's got all of his army around him who don't intervene. I'm going to have a fair fight with you, Lucius, now, because, I've killed your mum and I owe you a fair fight, or whatever his reasoning is. And they have a fight, and it goes pretty close, and Macrinus almost wins. But then he dies, and just dies in the river. It's very anticlimactic. But the fact that they think that this... Denzel Washington's it's in his 60s, and Paul Mescal's supposed to be this gladiator who's about 28, 30. So obviously he would just win. There wouldn't just be a fight, like he would just win. So it's stupid. It's stupid. In the first one, it's realistic because before they fight, Commodus makes sure that Maximus is injured, so he can have a chance. But they're both completely able-bodied in the second one. A 28-year-old man versus like a 60-year-old guy. So the 28-year-old man would just win. He would just kill him. And why would the guard just stand there and watch that happen? Like Denzel Washington's taken over Rome. I mean, I don't know. It's not really explained or explored, or it's all very rushed. I think I don't think Ridley Scott really was trying to make something as well structured and well crafted this time. I don't know what he was doing. He said he's going to make a Gladiator 3. I don't think I'm going to watch it, which is saying a lot. I don't think I'm going to, for reasons I was just going into, I don't think I'm going to pay much attention to reviews until there's like, if it gets 40, 50,000 ratings on IMDb and settles above a 7 or something, Gladiator 3, then I might watch that. But I don't hold that much hope for that. I don't really care if that gets made. Gladiator 2, I was intrigued, I guess. But like I say, it's just a mess. There's just stuff flying off all over the place, and you don't care about any of the characters. The first one was so well crafted. This is a disappointment. I think that this film, Gladiator 2, is thinner than the poster for the first one, is how I would say it if I have to sum it up. It's thin. It feels like a thin film that doesn't matter. The first one is like classical storytelling. It's kind of epic. And this one is just this modern mess that maybe, you could believe. If you told me AI had written it, someone said, we fed Gladiator into an AI and just said, make a exciting new modern version of Gladiator with modern actors in it. And then that it excreted this, then I believe you. So anyway, I don't recommend Gladiator 2. I was leaning towards giving it 5 out of 10, but I've had time to think about it, so I think I'll give it 4. And the reason I give it 4 out of 10 is that I think Denzel Washington's sort of entertaining, and I think there are some scenes in the third act where it starts to take a bit of a hard left with Denzel Washington taking over Rome, where he's really, it's just sort of evil and funny and a little bit entertaining. And there's a few bits early on with some of the actors, where some side actors, where they give some good performances, and some of the film looks quite nice here and there, so it's what I wasn't exactly bored. Doesn't really give you that much time to be bored, so I would say a 4 is about fair. Maybe over time I would downgrade it to a 3, but I think I'd settle around a 4 for this. So anyway, it's nice to be back posting videos. I've got some other ones that I want to post. I've seen a few other films recently. The Smile 2, Terrifier 3, The Substance, Conclave, The Line, Nosferatu. I'd like to post some reviews of those. So anyway, if you watched this far, thank you very much. Goodbye.